it's Mike, and today we're going to be doing something slightly different. You see, a while ago, I created a tier list for all the charms in Hollow Knight, and now that Silksong's coming out, Jesus Christ, I decided to remake that video and re-rank all 42 charms. This includes stuff like Grimchild to stuff like... Spore Shoe. But anyway, with that being said, let's get started with... Wayward Compass. Honestly, it's a pretty good charm for starting players, but the more you play and replay Hollow Knight, it slowly gets worse and worse, and more of a waste of 300 Geo. But still, it's quite good for some new players, so I'm going to put it in Attuned. Gathering Swarm. It's not really that good in most situations, but in case, like, Geo falls into spikes, it could be helpful, especially with that one Geo capsule in between the Arena for Broken Vessel and the top bench in, the Ancient Basin. It's really useful for stuff like that. So I'm gonna put it in good tier. Stalwart Shell. It's, when have you ever in the history of forever seen anyone use this charm? I'm not even sure where I got this thing on my first playthrough. Pretty sure I just came into the game one day and there it was. I'm putting it in mediocre tier because, yes, it has potential, but I didn't even know this thing was here before making this tier list. Soulcatcher. It's, well, it's not as unmemorable as Stalwart Shell, but still, it's got quite early in the game, and really, you're going to be wanting a Spell Twister if you want to cast more spells. This really doesn't have a purpose. It's useful in the early game, I suppose, before you unlock Soul Sanctum, or before you get Soul Eater, but overall, it's mediocre. Shaman Stone. Absolute rating. Do I need to say anything more? And Soul Eater, it's just too damn expensive to be useful on any builds. Again, use Spell Twister if you want to cast more spells, because this thing is going to take up a third of your charm slots. Do you want to waste a third of your charm slots on that? Next up is Dashmaster. This charm, really, I don't use it in battles that often, sheerly because I don't dash that often. Maybe in like Traitor Lord or Pure Vessel, I dash quite a bit, yes, but I'm using Shade Soul for that. And I've only really used this thing as a charm while I'm exploring Hallownest, getting around places quicker, moving around enemies quicker. I don't really have time to buy the Sprint Master from Sly, so mainly this is what I'm using to get around Hallownest, and it's great at doing that, but that's all it's good at doing. I'm putting it in Attuned because it's great at doing what it's doing, but it only does one thing. It's a one-trick pony. And Sprint Master is just a worse Dash Master. Yes, it's useful for navigating around an arena quickly, but, like, you can't really position yourself to avoid attacks that well if you have Sprint Master. And yes, it synergizes with Dash Master to give you more speed, but, again, I'm going to be using Dash Master if I want to get around quicker. I don't need fast running. I have dashing. Next up is Grubsong. Easy Ascended. Grubsong is great for stuff like Path of Pain or a really hard boss. If you're getting hit a lot, then Grubsong is going to be your go-to charm. It's one charm notch. It's just genuinely really good at melding into whatever build you have. If you have a nail build, you're getting up and close enough with the bosses. You're going to get hit a lot, you need Grub Song. If you have a spell build, you need to cast a lot of spells, you need a lot of soul, you need Grub Song. If you have a summoner's build, for some reason, then you're going to need soul to summon Glowing Womb. What makes soul? Obviously, Grub Song. Grubberfly's Elegy. Now, for 3 charm notches, has a useful effect, but its drawback is just too severe to be useful in any case. But it is very useful on Radiant bosses. At this point, it just becomes a better Mark of Pride, except you can only use it on Radiant, or if you're just really, really good at dodging. So, yeah, I'm gonna give it to Attuned. Unbreakable Heart. It's easily meldable into most builds. If you have 2 notches, it's not the worst thing you can go for. But again, it's not the best. You can do, like, Spell Twister again. You could do Sharp Shadow, you could do Dash Master. There are a lot of other ways you can spend 2 charm notches, but it's not a bad idea if you have them. Good. Unbreakable Greed. The sheer irony of Unbreakable Greed boosts it up to Attuned, because you need to grind like, what, 9,000, 12,000 to get this thing, and for what? If you're good enough at running around that one area in City of Tears, killing all of the guards, then why do you need an unbreakable version of this? It's funny, because why? Need I say more? It's like Shaman Stone, Unbreakable Strength is genuinely really good. If you have a nail build and you're using like Quick Slash and Mark of Pride and maybe Grubberfly's Elegy, this thing is for you. It is genuinely amazing. If you have a nail and you hit someone with the nail, it deals more damage. That's it. And yet it's really, really good at doing that thing. And it's not in the way of Dash Master. You are going to hit a lot of things with your nail, believe it or not. Spell Twister, I've ranted a lot about Spell Twister. I've talked plenty about it while talking about these 2. If you're making a spell build and you want to do more spells, then put this thing on. It's majorly underrated in comparison to, like, Unbreakable Strength and Shaman Stone. It's cheap, it's effective, you're able to squeeze 1 more spell out of a full soul vessel, and in that way, this might be a bit controversial, but it's going in Absolute Radiant. Fight me in the comments, I dare you. Steady Body. Now, this charm might actually do more harm than good. Most professional players are, like, attuned to the knockback that hitting an enemy with your nail does, and they're, like, prepared for that. So, equipping this just throws everything out of balance, and if you're at a level where you're, like, considering making builds for stuff like the Pantheons, then this thing is going to hinder you. It's going in bad. It's not bad enough to be cast into the Abyss, but speaking of being cast into the Abyss, Heavy Blow. This is unanimously agreed to be one of the worst charms ever. It gives ranged opponents an advantage. Yes, it makes bosses stagger faster, but there's like 5 bosses who even stagger. If you count, like, whatever. Long story short, this thing isn't useful in any capacity. It's not like Stalwart Shell where it seems useful but no one uses it. People know about this thing a little bit too much, and they hate it. Cast into the Abyss, be gone! But something that's not going to be cast into the Abyss is Quick Slash. Unanimously agreed to be one of the best charms. you can attack faster, which is going to be, like Grubsong, useful in almost every single build. You attack faster, that's useful in a nail build. You attack faster, you get more soul, that's useful in a summoner's build, or in a spellcaster's build. No matter your build, this thing is most likely going to be useful, and if you have the charm slots, then put this thing on. Half of these high cost ones I don't even have to explain. Now on to an underrated choice, Longnail. In comparison to its much longer, much older brother, Longnail just really isn't that bad in comparison. If you have enough charm slots for Longnail but no Mark of Pride, don't overcharm, just equip Longnail. Fun fact, the difference between Longnail and Mark of Pride is 10%. Mark of Pride increases your nail length by 25, Longnail increases it by 15. It is a ridiculously small gap, which way too many people say is way larger than it is. Ascended. Now onto Mark of Pride. Now, as I said, the difference between it and Longnail are 10%, and for one charm notch, that isn't really that good. And this might be one of the most controversial picks on this list. You might think that Stalwart Shell should be higher. You might think that Gathering Swarm should be lower. You might think that Spell Twister is a freak of nature and should be cast into the abyss. But everyone will probably agree that, without explanation, I would probably be crucified for doing this. Mark of Pride is going lower than Longnail. Honestly, again, the difference between the two is 10%, and for one charm notch, you can equip something like Thorns of Agony to deal more damage when you're hurt. You could equip Grubsong to get soul when you're hurt. You could equip, whatever, anything else. But really? You want to waste another charm notch to get 10% more nail length? If you have the notches to spare and you budget them, then yes, I agree, equip Longnail. But if you're just throwing charms on randomly, seeing what will work, don't use Mark of Pride. Use Longnail, because you're probably able to fit another charm into there which you wouldn't be able to do with Mark of Pride. Fury of the Fallen. Now, in stuff like speedruns, this thing is a no-brainer. It deals more damage, and if you've mastered a boss, then really, why waste, like, another charm notch on Unbreakable Strength if you're just gonna have that strength anyway? So I'm putting it in Attuned, mostly because it's very useful for speedrunners, but not really for anyone else. Thorns of Agony. Talk about a mediocre charm. Yes, it's kinda good, it deals damage to bosses when you're hurt, but it can also take away some of your recovery time, so you can't run away from the boss after you're hurt to heal, or, like, do anything else. Yes, it could synergize with Boulder Shell or Carefree Melody, because it still activates when those two are activated, so you don't even have to regain any health or anything. But still, why? Just equip Grubsong if you're missing a charm notch. That's why it's going in mediocre. Alongside Stalwart Shell, Fluke Nest, which is, yes, overpriced, but also slightly overpowered. This thing turns your Shade Soul into a shotgun of sorts, shooting out hundreds of tiny little flukes which flop around the ground and each deal like an accumulative of like double your Shade Soul damage. It itself is a very good charm, which is why I'm putting it in Ascended. Defender's Crest. For one charm notch, it is certainly very good, but as a charm, it's kinda not. Damage it deals, and the closeness you have to be to a boss or enemy for it to activate, kinda draws it down. And for that reason, I'm just going to put it in attuned. I'm putting a lot in attuned, and some of these are probably very controversial. Next up is Glowing Room, which we can all agree is bad. Sorry, not cast into abyss levels are bad, but it's still quite bad. It uses up your soul. The flukes really just don't do that much. If you want to use your soul to attack the enemy, use spells. But something that's not bad is Quick Focus. Now, yes, it is overcharm. 3 notches is very high for what it does, but it's still quite good. If you're in a pinch, it speeds up your healing, which could save you in a large amount of times. So that's why I'm putting it in good tier. And just below it is Deep Focus. As I said before, this thing is very, very, very overpriced. The only reason it's not going in bad or even cast into the abyss, because of its massive charm notch cost and very little payoff, is for the simple reason that you can use it in the White Pass or Path of Pain. That is it. Speaking of mediocre, I'm putting all of the Lifeblood charms in here. For the sole reason of why? Hiveblood. It's good. Yes, it could probably heal you up if you don't have enough soul to do so yourself. And yes, it's also useful in the Path of Pain. But aside from that, is it really worth going through the Hive to get? I mean, a whole area just for one charm, which is arguably overpriced and arguably doesn't do much. And really, the only reason it's not with Journey's Blessing is, again, because it's useful in the Path of Pain. Next up, Spore Shroom. What does this thing do again? Is Sharp Shadow. I have used this thing so many more times than I can count. It's very simple, yet very effective. A must-have for Traitor Lord, which is basically just dash through him, dash through him, dash through him. Uh-oh, Cloth's dead. Oh, yay, the battle's over. And I also used it for Pure Vessel. It just makes a good 10th of the bosses in the Hall of Gods an absolute joke. I highly recommend it. Ascended. Weaver's Song, it's not as bad as Glowing Room, but it's still quite bad. The Weavers have a limited range, and yes, they're not wasting soul if it's with Grub Song that it even gets you soul, which is arguably very good. But it's just, the Weavers are very bad. I can't describe them as anything else than bad, which is why I have to put them in mediocre, alongside the Dream Shield stuff, and yeah, I don't even have to explain these. And Carefree Melody, it's good. I don't have anything else to say about it. And now, we're on to the final 3. Grimchild goes into Ascended. Now, hear me out. You guys might have had a bad experience with Grimchild because you used them for the Grimcare quest and then you never used them again. I used Grimchild in a lot of the Pantheons. I used them to beat Sly. I used them to help me beat No Eyes. They are genuinely a good charm when you find the best battles to throw them out into. And for that reason, that's why I'm putting them into Ascended. And I know that you could have gotten Carefree Melody, and you could have skipped out on Nightmare King Grim, but you're gonna face him in the Pantheon anyway. And Grimchild is arguably a better charm, so why waste the potential of a really, really good charm when you can get a Brum, but without makeup in Dirtmouth? That's really the best. Long story short, I think that Grimchild is just genuinely a great charm. King Soul. Straight into the abyss. Let's be clear here, this thing is not a charm. It is a plot device in a charm shape. You won't even get a chance to use the thing. Not like you'd want to. It's 5 freaking notches and barely does anything. Unlike what comes out of the abyss. Void Heart. Now, you might not know what this thing does. You might just think it's another plot thing in a charm-shaped mold. But Void Heart is actually way more useful. Not only does it allow you to get the Dream No More ending, it also makes all shades peaceful to you. At this point in the game, your shade is the most overpowered it will possibly be. And this is a huge relief. Because when you're going in between Radiance, the bench, the Hollow Knight, Radiance bench, Hollow Knight, Radiance bench, Hollow Knight, having to fight your shade in between that as well is just tiring. It's just helpful. It's just attuned. And also plot relevance, blah blah blah. You're uniting the void or something. I don't know, I didn't watch Mog Swamp. But anyway folks, that is my tier list. You may rightfully roast me in the comments for my probably wrong takes. But if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe. I'll see you in a brand new daily video, Silksong, hopefully in tomorrow or a couple days or whatever. See you later.
You're taking too long.